I'm Jane Rudolph.
And I'm Monsignor Charles Minor. Welcome to Real to Real. Father Joe Glass is away, so that Jane and I have the privilege of bringing this program to you tonight. And we have so many things to tell you, we had better get busy and get going, Jane.
All right, I'll take that cue. In fact, tonight, although we don't have Father Joe Glass, we will find out how you could adopt a priest, a unique program that's going on right now in upstate New York. Secondly, we're also going to hear from Father Tom Legere, who talks about something unusual, the true elements of religion.
I don't have something unusual, but I have an old-time friend, not an old person, but a long-time friendship with Father Anthony Russo, and I'm happy to interview him tonight to talk about his apostolate to the deaf.
It has been a long-standing tradition, however, in the church to deal with those who really are in need. Different apostolates, and they're very different and varied.
We think so much about Jesus and his ministry and his proclamation of himself as Messiah, but the beautiful thing is that the identification of his mission and messiahship was his mission to the deaf.
Sunday morning Mass, a special time of devotion for all Catholics. But this Sunday is even more special at St. Francis of Assisi Parish in Norristown. For today they celebrate the Feast of St. Francis, patron saint of the parish. What makes this Mass even more unique is the attendance of those parishioners who are hearing impaired. They too can partake in the celebration thanks to the work of Sister Mary Immaculate and the apostolate to the deaf.
The apostolate for the deaf in the Archdiocese is basically the spiritual care and development of the approximately 80 Catholic deaf and deaf-blind children and approximately 1,000 deaf adults in the Archdiocese.
The apostolate began in 1881 with the involvement of Sister Patricia Hughes, a sister of St. Joseph and the first deaf sister in the community. In 1969, Sister Mary was assigned to work full-time in the apostolate and was given a tall order to fill.
My mandate was go, find out what has to be done, and do it. It was my job then, under Father Anthony Russo's direction, to reshape the entire apostolate for the deaf children of PSC. In the process, the apostolate also included deaf adults too, and we began to search out the needs of these people and to answer them as best as we could.
This apostolate has as its goal to hand on the faith of Jesus Christ to people with either a profound hearing loss or lesser degrees of hearing loss, and who are members of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. The work involved would be very similar to the work of a parish priest, but the Archdiocese would be the boundaries of the parish.
Our apostolate differs from a social program primarily in our focus on the spiritual. Although we try to answer whatever needs our people may come to us with, our focus is primarily the spiritual development. And by answering other needs too, we try to convince them that the church does care.
Whether it is instructing priests and seminarians in sign language, signing the Mass to parishioners, or working with children, Sisters' responsibilities with the apostolate are many. As displayed on this map, there are literally hundreds to be reached. Red flags indicate children, pink, single women, blue, single men, and yellow and white show the married couples helped by the apostolate.
As far as adults are concerned, we try to answer whatever needs they may have. How they see us is something that we don't know. We're there to meet needs. I guess maybe you could term that as a friend. I would like to hope that they see Christ in us. In dealing with the children, I see my role probably as spiritual motherhood for them. In many cases, these children will not know the church unless we bring it to them. When you deal with these youngsters, you can't help but love them. Loving them with affection and loving them with the love of Christ. When we have deaf children of hearing parents, my approach to them had always been colored by my experience with my own parents as I was growing up. Raising a deaf child is not easy, but parents today have so many helps that my parents never had. And for this, I'm eternally grateful. The parents teach me far more than I could ever do for them, because in each of them I see my own parents' pain, and it deepens my appreciation of what my parents did for me, because without my parents, I know that I could never have come as far as I have. That increases correspondingly my responsibility to all the people I serve. Therefore, I find that my role with hearing parents of deaf children or vice versa is basically one of compassion. It should be. I pray it always is.
Sister Mary Immaculate is really an outstanding, dedicated pastoral worker who has performed steadily over the years. And she's done it professionally and in a very competent way, and she's done it in a very Christ-like and Mary-like way. And without her, this apostolate would be in very bad condition.
Basically, we need more personnel working in this field. There are people out there that we're not reaching, primarily because we lack the manpower. And also, I think we need to educate people as to what the church in Philadelphia is doing for the Catholic deaf population. So much of this work is not in the limelight. It's not the kind of thing that makes good news copy. I would like to see more people involved. I would like more people to know what we do. Above all, I would like them to know that the church cares, and cares very much, as Christ cared.
What wonders are being worked right here in the Archdiocese, and what a nice time it is for us to learn of them. In fact, you'll be learning even more about this apostolate coming up next with Father Russo on Monsignor Minos, so stay with us.
Since 1981, Reel to Reel has been proclaiming the good news by bringing you stories of Christian faith in action. We do it by roaming the Delaware Valley, searching for people of faith, hope, and charity.
But like all modern media, it is an expensive proposition. If you're a new viewer, or if you've enjoyed Reel to Reel for many years, we'd like to thank you for watching and invite you to participate by actively supporting the show.
With costs rising all around us, we need your financial support. A donation of $5, $10, $20, or whatever you can send will help to keep us on the air.
Send your contributions to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, PA 19103. And thank you.
Hello, I'm Gary Maddox. When I played with the Phillies, reading the pitcher gave me the advantage. But life is not a game. To give yourself the advantage, you have to be able to read. To get the help you need, call the Mayor's Commission on Literacy at 686-8652. Learn to read. It will change your life.
When I said old friend, I did not mean age, and you know that. Old friendships are those which develop out of deep love and understanding. It's been my privilege to meet Father Anthony Russo, and I want you to meet him with us today in this program now, because, Tony, it's been wonderful to be with you in the past, and I want to say one thing. Did you ever go into the Olympics? Because I asked you to give a weekend Cursillo, and you said, I'd have to prepare for the Olympics, Charlie. Is it that tough to do sign language?
Well, I knew that the Cursillo would be an exercise for me mentally, spiritually, and physically to sign through the whole experience, but it really was worth it. because we provide a communications bridge from you to the deaf participants in the Cursillo
It was
weekend.
a great privilege for us and an enrichment to the church. In the physical idea, though, deafness is a physical problem, and it's a physical handicap, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
What's the extent of an apostolate to the deaf, Tony? How far-reaching is it?
Well, the apostolate, this work is tantamount to being a parish priest with the archdiocese as the boundary. So that I would do many of the same things that a parish priest would do, plus a few extra things. But however, the people would not be centered around the church. The people would be scattered to the far corners of the archdiocese.
How large do you think your parish would be then? How many families would you have?
Well, we have about roughly close to 1,000 people, about 900 people in our files. And I would add a few hundred more that perhaps we've been unable to identify so far. So I would say that we're talking roughly in terms of about 1,000 people.
And so generally deafness is not it's a physical handicap, but it's not the healthfully poor. Those people are good, healthy people. So you would be across the border, old and young.
Yes, exactly. Deafness cuts across every layer of society. So you will find deafness in every socioeconomic level. You'll find it in every geographic area of the archdiocese, although there are concentrations of deaf people, particularly in northeast Philadelphia, and in the Lansdale area.
Because they gravitate together by friendship or social life?
That's part of it, and as you look at the history of this area, another reason for the concentration has been employment opportunities. A quick example, on the national level, many deaf people have gravitated toward Akron, Ohio in the past. The reason being that the large rubber companies in the Akron area were very good employers of the deaf. So deaf people hearing about this opportunity would flock to the Akron area. And that's true on the local level too, although not with that kind of employment. But
how's your pediatrics? When does a family discover a deafness in a baby? What do you think would be the signal that they would understand my child is deaf?
Well, if the parents themselves are deaf, the deaf infant is immediately accepted without any kind of emotional trauma. The deaf infant is accepted with a very smooth emotional reaction. However, if the parents can hear, obviously they were not expecting a deaf infant, then we usually have an emotional period to go through. Sometimes guilt, sometimes anger, sometimes bewilderment and frustration. And we try to enter the picture then, if we can, if we know about it, and try to guide them through these emotional stages that they go through.
When would they begin working with the baby?
Ideally, as soon as possible. We try to help them through the emotional periods, and then when they accept the infant emotionally, then we try to get them into preschool programs. One example of that right now would be the Archdiocese's School for the Deaf, Archbishop Ryan Memorial Institute for the Deaf in West Philadelphia.
But schooling is generally available for the deaf
Yes.
in all, both secular and religious life.
Yes. Yes.
How about religious education?
Well, in the Archdiocese, we've had extensive catechetical units and centers throughout the various parts of the diocese, depending on where the deaf people lived. So over the years, we've had as many as 30 or 35 various catechetical centers throughout the Archdiocese. The Pennsylvania School for the Deaf, when it was located on Germantown Avenue, was a residential school. And every Monday, we went on the premises to teach the Catholic faith. And we also had liturgies for them and retreats for the teenagers, too. But now that facility closed, and they reopened as a much smaller place on Schoolhouse Lane. So it's no longer a residential school.
Do you think there's much we can do, Tony, about the social life of the deaf people? Because it would seem to me they would be excluded because of the incapacity to hear.
Well, social isolation is a large factor in the life of the deaf. It's a factor that they have to face courageously and squarely and deal with it. they will tend toward other deaf people for their social life because of the frustrations that they've encountered in communicating with people who can hear. So they have their own organizations, their own clubs, their own recreation, and we have socialization for them too in the church, so that they will congregate with each other because of the ease of communication, and they don't feel the communication of frustration when they're among themselves. They simply don't feel it. It's a smooth, easy, comfortable way to communicate.
But this medium we now use to communicate cannot be socially intensified to be exclusive. And so we want you to know there's a great apostolate among the deaf and needs far more work, far more volunteers. If you are interested, would you contact us here at Reel to Reel, and we'll put you in touch with the apostolate for the deaf. Now I want you to understand there's a great piece coming. We want you to wait for it because it has much to do with our values and spiritual life.
Anyone who has ever had a pen pal can remember that they were almost always waiting for a letter to arrive. But what about a letter from a priest?
Excuse me. I want to give blood.
You're in the right place. Come with me.
I heard about those people in the accident. I just want to help.
Great.
How are they doing anyway?
Well, last we heard, they're going to be just fine.
You know, it's a good thing you guys were there.
No. It's a good thing you are here.
Call the American Red Cross. Your neighbors need you.
We welcome your comments and suggestions and encourage you to write to us at Reel to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19103, or call us during regular business hours at 215-668-9842.
Well, when we think about the number 4, we think about the 4 seasons and the 4 elements, fire, air, water, and wind, but we also think about 4 elements when we talk about religion.
And the idea Father Tom Legere gives us is 4 basic elements in religious experience, and we just can't sit back and wonder about it. Each of us has to come to the knowledge of some religious experience.
Greetings in the Lord. In order for a religious tradition to be life-giving, it needs 4 elements: religious experience, an understanding of that experience, the element of service, and finally a way of synthesizing all 3 of those elements. Let's take them one at a time. First of all, we need a religious experience. A religion that does not give us religious experience is dead. Sometimes I think people fall into what I call secondhand religion. We have an experience of someone else's experience. The point of everything that Jesus and Mary and all the saints did was to enable us to follow them, to have that same experience of the living God that they had. Secondly, we need an understanding of our experience. This, I think, is where a lot of the fundamentalists really come up short. For them, they are settling for pat answers, for black and white solutions to life's problems, whereas Catholicism, in its finer moments, has always cherished the intellectual pursuit, has honored the fact that God has given us a brain. A priest friend of mine had a fundamentalist come up to him recently and say, "The Lord led me here and the Lord led me there," and his response was, "Has the Lord ever led you to a library?" It is crucial for us, I think, for intelligent thinking people to be able to investigate and try to understand our religious experience. Thirdly, however, it's also crucial for us to translate all of this into service. Jesus was very clear about the fact that religion is not to be just a mystical fantasy. It's not just to be a head trip, certainly. It is, when all is said and done, to be something that enables the heart to open up and for us to love one another, to wash one another's feet. Finally, it's important for us to have some kind of a synthesis of all this. You can have service without religious experience, and then I think we become like the hollow men of T.S. Eliot, mindlessly going through the motions. Or we can have a religious experience without any kind of service. And that leads us to a kind of fanaticism. If any element is missing or is distorted, then religion is in trouble. Let's examine our consciences and see how we can make religion be all that it was meant to be.
Father Tom always so easily and gently tells us how to go about the procedures for things, and that's beautiful to come down to service. We all want to serve, but you know, before we can get to service, we have to really get some experience and understanding.
Experience and understanding is sometimes difficult between youngsters and adults, but that's where the Adopt a Priest program steps in. Now, this is where youngsters are writing to priests and priests are writing back to them. And it's true when they say that a phone call is over in an instant, but a letter lasts a lifetime.
Anyone who has ever had a pen pal can remember that they were almost always waiting for a letter to arrive. But what about a letter from a priest? Children at St. Gregory's School in Williamsville, New York, had an opportunity to write to priests in the Diocese of Buffalo. Their mission was to adopt a priest. Organizers describe how the program developed.
Well, I read about it in a national publication that some other parishes had done this in other areas of the country. And I thought it might be a good idea for St. Gregory's because St. Gregory's is the largest parish in the Diocese of Buffalo.
After Anne presented us with all the necessary materials to begin the program, Kate Perry, who is religion coordinator for the upper wing, and I put our heads together and brought all our religion teachers together for a meeting, presented the idea to them about Adopt a Priest. They just were elated with it. They just loved the idea. And they just took right off with it. We gave them some suggestions, some ideas, and the next thing we knew, all kinds of letters were coming into St. Gregory's from all the priests.
In the letters he wrote back to me, he told me like what his hobbies were, and I told him that I like to dance.
My teacher, Mrs. Cole, started it, and she each gave us a name from a priest, and she handed it out to us, and she said, you know, we can continue writing till in June.
He was glad that he was writing to me, that I was writing to him, because he never had something like this, and it was fun for him to write back and things.
Through the Adopt a Priest program, children can provide something special to priests.
For me, it's a good thing to be in contact with children. Just in the parish I'm in, I think there are about 4 children, you know, under the age of 18. So it's kind of enjoyable for me to be in contact with somebody like that, first of all. Secondly, as I say, not being a celibate, not having my own kids, that's helpful to enjoy children that way. But I think when you get to my age, you wonder about not having your own children. And I'm at that point where I'm realizing this is it, and I won't be, anyone's father in that sense of the word. So when you do get a response from children like that, I always find it very encouraging and very gratifying. So they become, in a certain sense, kind of substitute children for you.
The children like the feeling of corresponding with an adult. That's special to them. It's an adult, and they can communicate with them, and they're very interested in each other's lives, which is, a new perspective for both of them, for the child and the adult. The children were just fantastic. They have such warm hearts to this, Oh, I got another letter. Oh, Mrs. Cole, this happened. Oh, this happened. They're great. They really are.
I like Father Paul. I think he's one of the best priests we have, and he's a nice guy, He plays golf in the summer and stuff, and I wrote my letter, and I just said that I wanted to hear him write back to me, and, I was looking forward to serving on the altar with him.
I suppose our relationship is a little different than the other priests because Rob is a parishioner of St. Gregory and I'm the priest here, so I get to see Rob quite a bit when I come into the school every day, or when he serves at the altar. I taught him how to be an altar boy. So even though we see each other quite a bit, person to person, I was very happy that he took the time, nevertheless, to write a letter, send a card at the holidays, and I responded through the mail. But we also have a relationship beyond a writing relationship, so that I see him quite a bit. So I would hope that the young people in the church are growing up with a feeling of being comfortable with their priests and being able to converse with them, work with them, talk with them, exchange ideas with them. And I see this program as doing precisely all of those things. So I hope as these young people grow up, they'll know that priests are approachable, that they're concerned about their ideas, that priests need these people.
My own personal experience has been absolutely fascinating. It's been terrific. One letter in particular, I don't remember the priest's name, because out of 63 students, I would say the children received at least 50. So I don't remember this particular priest, but he said, "You must have made a mistake. Why would such a young child write to such an old man? God must have answered my prayers." It was so moving that even the children were just kind of, mesmerized. And he was just so happy that someone young had touched his life. And they still correspond.
I think it stems from the idea that the church is supposed to be like a family. And when somebody in your family retires or isn't as active as they once were, you don't forget about them, but you do still keep them in mind.
This unique program gives priests the experience of a family that they might not otherwise have. Often the children are able to meet their adopted priests and discover that priests are people too.
He's nice. He's sort of quieter, but he's nice. Because he's good with responding.
He's very nice, very nice. He's shy sometimes, and he's always happy.
There are so many areas of involvement if we only take the time to learn, such as tonight we found about the apostolate for the deaf, and even next week on Reel to Reel. Next week on Reel to Reel, Mother Angelica will be our special guest. We'll explore the culture of the Indian Catholics of today, meet a grandfather who started a second career, and Father Tom Legere will take you on a spiritual journey. Till next week, please take care.
Goodbye, and God bless you.
Travel arrangements for Reel to Reel by Atkinson and Mullen Travel of Media, PA. Phone area 215-359-5980.